Hello friends, welcome to our lecture series on CSR, that is Corporate Social Responsibility. This is going to be part 2 of our lectures on CSR, and in this very lecture I'll be continuing my discussion on the definition of CSR, and then we'll talk about the different models of CSR. So let us start from where we left in the previous lecture. We had a discussion on the global outlook, Indian scenario, and then we talked about the basic meaning and definition of CSR, and we had a discussion on the definition given by Carroll, where Carroll talked about the social responsibility of Carroll defined CSR as the social responsibility of business which is encompassing the economic, legal, ethical and discretionary expectations which society is having from a corporate entity, and they are supposed to take care of that. I will be explaining in detail about the Carroll's definition when I will tell you about the Carroll's model of CSR, the way they have created the Carroll have created a triangle, where in that triangle they have Carroll have put forth what is the economic, legal, ethical and discretionary levels of expectations which society is having from a corporate entity which is operating there in that specific society or that specific country at a given point of time. So their concern was, while defining CSR, Carroll tried to put forth not only the economic aspect but also legal, ethical and discretionary expectations. So there was an addition of discretionary expectation by Carroll. If we look at the EU definition of CSR, that is European Union's definition of CSR, it says that it is basically a concept whereby companies integrate their social and environmental concerns in their business operations, that they are integrating their social and environmental concerns. So they have prominently given significance to these two important concerns. One is social and second one is environmental, while conducting their business operations and in their interaction with their stakeholders on a voluntary basis. So EU talked about taking CSR on voluntary basis, and they said that while interacting with your stakeholders you should take care of environmental and social concerns as well. In October 2011, EU introduced some new thinking, and they have stated that CSR is the responsibility of enterprises for their impacts on society. And this definition speaks volumes about the expectation of society from the business enterprises. It says that CSR is the responsibility of enterprises on one hand. For what? The other hand is for their impacts on society. So it is their responsibility as a company, it is my responsibility for what? For achieving my impact on society. So our survival is dependent upon the way we are touching the very pulse of our society, or you can say the individuals who are basically living in that society. So CSR is the responsibility of business enterprise for their impacts on society. This is what EU wanted to consider CSR, consider as a definition of CSR. So EU was basically of opinion that while dealing or interacting with your stakeholders, you should take care of environmental concern, you should take care of the social concerns also. So social and environmental concerns, they have never been part of the economic goals, and when we talk about CSR, these two dimensions of our business operations, they are supposed to be integrated with our economic goals. That is what EU included in the very definition of CSR. Now the next definition on CSR is by the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. We call it WBCSD. That is the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and it says that the definition is very comprehensive, and it includes almost all the aspects of CSR. It says that CSR is the continuing commitment. So it says that there has to be consistency. It is basically a continuing commitment by business to behave ethically and contribute to economic development while improving the quality of life of the workforce and their families, as well as of the local community and society at large. So this definition is called as one of the most comprehensive definition of CSR. Why it is so? Let me explain. It says that first of all, whatever you are doing for the betterment of society or on account of CSR, you should be consistent into that. It's not like that you are doing it for 1 year or so and then you are leaving. So it is in its very definition the first very emphasis is being given on continuing commitment, that you should be consistent in your operations. There has to be consistency by business to what? To behave ethically. They should behave in an ethical manner. This is point number one. Second is to contribute to the economic development. Of course, they are supposed to generate profit because their survival is because of profit. So they have to contribute not only to the economic development of their business enterprise but also the country at large. And while doing so, they have to improve the quality of life of different people, different stakeholders. Now let us understand one by one. They have to improve while working for the economic development. They have to behave ethically, and while doing so, they have to improve the quality of life of first their workforce. Number one, their workforce. The person who is working in your factory, you should improve as a company. You should improve or try to improve the quality of life of the workforce. So there has to be congenial work atmosphere. The employee should feel at ease with your company's atmosphere, the infrastructure which you are providing to the employee. That should add to the quality of life of your workforce. And second is their families. And if you are including their family, then of course the salary or the amount which you are paying to those workforce, those employees, that also matters. Apart from that, what you are doing for the betterment of their family. Do you have any scheme for the family members of the workforce who are working at your company? And apart from that, they have to take care of the local community and at a broader level, society at large. So starting from workforce to their family, from workforce, that is individual, to family, family to local community, and local community to society at large. So starting from individual to society at large, they have to try to improve their quality of life. This is what this definition of World Business Council for Sustainable Development says. And whatever is being prescribed, whatever is being called as CSR, the company is supposed to do practice it in a consistent manner, because the first very condition is it is basically a continuing commitment. So there has to be commitment, and that too continuing. There has to be consistency in what you are doing. So see, as per the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, CSR is all about taking care of the quality of life of workforce, the local community, and society at large. Now, if you look at the definition given by the Companies Act, prescribed in Companies Act 2013, in Indian scenario, what Companies Act 2013 says, section 135 to be very specific. It says that CSR means and include but not limited to. It says that when you ask the Companies Act 2013 for CSR, it says that it means and include but not limited to, which means we are trying to give you a definition, but it is not limited to all this only. It is much ahead of what we are trying to define here. So it is not limited to it includes projects or programs relating to activities specified in the Schedule 7 of the Act. Schedule 7 of the Companies Act specifies certain activities on which companies may spend on CSR activities. So the project or programs which are related to activities specified in the Schedule 7 of the Act, they would qualify to be called as the CSR activity of the company, or the projects or programs relating to activities undertaken by board of directors of the company in pursuance of the recommendations of the CSR committee of their company, of the board, as per declared CSR policy of the company enumerated in Schedule 7 of the Act. So either there is a project or program which is relating to activities specified in Schedule 7, or the project or programs which are undertaken by board of directors of the company in pursuance of the recommendation of their CSR committee, that will also be defined as CSR. Now, what is CSR policy? CSR policy is related to the activities to be undertaken by the company as specified in the Schedule 7 of the Companies Act. So Schedule 7 is something, is a part of the enactment which gives a guideline. It is specifying the activities on which, if you are spending as a corporate entity, that expenditure will qualify to be called as expenditure on CSR activities, and expenditure on those activities, excluding activities undertaken in pursuance of normal course of business of a company, would be called as CSR. Remember, if your company is doing an activity which is specified in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act 2013. But that is basically that activity is something which is in normal course of your business operations, which forms part of your normal course of business operations. In that case, it will not be included, it will not be categorized as CSR. So remember that there is a rider that on specified activities if you are spending, that is expenditure on CSR. But that expenditure, if you are doing if you are incurring those expenses on account of your normal course of business, then in that case it will not qualify to be called as CSR, to be categorized as CSR. So you must be thinking that it is not a definition of CSR, it is giving us the specified activities and saying that spending on these activities would qualify to be called as expenditure on CSR. Try to understand, it is indirectly giving us a definition that what are those activities on which if you are spending will be called as CSR. What are those activities? I'll be telling you, I'll be giving you the complete detail of Schedule 7, the activities specified in Schedule 7 of the Companies Act in due course of our discussion. But here, for instance, I can give you an example that spending on school education, spending on higher education, spending on some research and development activities, that these kind of activities are there into the CSR, into the Schedule 7 of Companies Act. Spending on for the welfare of society at large, spending on account of health services or education services, that is given, that is specified in Schedule 7 of the Act. So indirectly it is giving us a very comprehensive definition of CSR, that if a company is spending on these activities, or company is performing these activities, of course to perform those activities they have to spend some amount. So objective is not to talk about expenditure only, but to talk about those activities. So those are specified activities, and they are well thought activity. While specifying it in the Schedule 7 of the Act, there was a proper discussion, deliberation, and the proper procedure was followed to include those activities, keeping in mind the requirement of the society at large and what are the gap areas these activities were identified. If we look at the most popular triangle which can describe the total CSR, this is a triangle which you will find everywhere. This is the most popular triangle. In most of the presentations, in most of the literature on CSR, you will find this. And if you look at this pyramid, starting from the first step of the pyramid, that is looking at the bottom, there is an economic responsibility of a business, and that is nothing but being profitable. That as a company, it is your responsibility to be profitable, and that is called economic responsibility. So this is basically the prime goal of any business enterprise, which we are categorizing as economic responsibility. As a company, it is their duty to economically to be responsible for their economic goals, and they should be profitable. Second point which comes after this is the legal responsibility, that as a company when you are operating, you have to abide by the law of the land. So whatever is being prescribed, that you are supposed to take care of. Then comes the ethical responsibility. You should be ethical into your behavior. And the last one is basically called as the discretionary responsibility, that you should contribute to the betterment of the society, you should contribute to the goodness of the society, or something like that. So this triangle basically talks about the different aspects of CSR. Some people say that making profit doesn't mean that you are spending, that you are an ethical company. No. Creating profit, generating profit, creating capital, there is no crime into that. As an economic entity, you are supposed to create some profit. Without profit, how can you survive? And when we talk about the economic responsibility, I am reminded of the very definition given by Michael Hopkins. I had an opportunity to discuss the various aspects of CSR with Michael Hopkins in person. And we invited him at our university also, where we had a discussion on, we had an extensive discussion on CSR and the way he looks at CSR, that I'll be telling you when I'll tell you about the Michael Hopkins definition of CSR, the kind of model he has given into that. So coming to the Hopkins CSR model, Michael Hopkins has defined CSR in a slightly different way. or a different manner. He says that CSR is a process which is concerned with treating the stakeholders of a company or institution ethically or in a responsible manner. So, if you look at the definition of CSR by Michael Hopkins, Michael Hopkins says that we are concerned with treating the stakeholders of a company or institution ethically or in a responsible manner. So, when I am treating my stakeholders in a responsible manner, that is also CSR. So, I have to take care of my stakeholders ethically or in a responsible manner. When I am responsible for towards my all stakeholders, it means I am contributing to the very cause of CSR. And when we use this word ethically or responsible, it means treating key stakeholders in a manner deemed acceptable according to the international norms. You cannot say that I feel or I assume or I believe that the way my company is behaving with its stakeholders is ethical or responsible. Michael has categorically defined this very aspect of ethical or responsible by putting a rider that the manner will be deemed acceptable according to the international norms. Only that manner would be called as ethical or responsible if it is according to the international norms, the global norms or the standards which are prescribed for a specific stakeholder, which are prescribed for that entire framework of stakeholders which are forming part of our company's operations. Now, Hopkins further goes ahead and defines that social includes economic, financial and environmental responsibility. When we say social responsibility, it includes not only concern towards society or towards environment, but also economic and financial responsibility. Stakeholders exist both within a firm or institution and outside. As per Hopkins, the stakeholders are not only within the organization, but they are also outside the organization, and it includes at least an organization's leaders, staff, shareholders, suppliers, as well as the consumers and users of their public goods and services. So even consumers are the stakeholders, and we should take care of their concern also, their expectations also as a corporate entity. It may also be media, government and the wider society, of course. So Michael talks about a broader framework of CSR wherein all stakeholders are included, ranging from customers, staff to media, government and of course the society at large. And the wider aim of social responsibility, as per Michael Hopkins, is to create higher and higher standards of sustainable living. And while when we are doing so, while preserving the profitability of the corporation or the integrity of the institution for peoples both within and outside these entities. So while doing so, they have to preserve their profitability. The Hopkins model of CSR never says that you should compromise, you should avoid your profitability or you should ignore your profitability. While preserving the profitability of your corporation or the integrity of the institution, you have to take care of not only people within the organization but also outside your entities. And the key for the definition of CSR by Michael is that the key is how profits are made, not the pursuit of profits at any cost. And this is a very fascinating line, that what is the objective, what is the main goal? Your goal should not be making profit at any cost. Your goal should be that the way the profit is being earned. If you say that you are spending huge amount on health and education of your country, or you are contributing towards the social betterment of your company, but your business operation is not at all ethical. You are making huge profit by different ways and means which are not at all ethical, which are not acceptable as per international norms, and then of course you are contributing afterwards, you are contributing to the betterment of the society. That will not comply, that is basically not the CSR as per the Hopkins definition of CSR. And this is the point, as per me, this is the point where Hopkins differs from other definitions. Hopkins definition differs from other definitions. It says that the key is how profits are made. So the basis of your profit should be ethical, it should be responsible, and it should take care of not only people within organizations but also beyond those entities. And as per Michael, CSR is process to achieve sustainable development in societies. Both CSR and sustainability, they address multi-stakeholders and their materiality. So basically it is a goal, it is a tool, it is a process to achieve sustainable development. When we talk about sustainable development, CSR becomes a catalyst. CSR plays a role of a catalyst, and we can say that CSR and sustainability, they are interchangeable concepts to some extent. That when we talk about the CSR, we are talking about a sustainable model where you can sustain with your profitability, the society can sustain. Not only the corporates are flourishing, but also the society is gaining out of their profitability, out of their economic goals, their achievement. Society at large is also getting benefits from those companies. And when we say corporate, it means anybody. As per Michael Hopkins, it includes private, public or NGO, and their definition applies neatly outside the traditional private corporate sphere. It says that even NGOs are part of this corporate, because they are also working for the betterment of society. So in their operations, if even if you are doing something for the betterment of society while operating, while doing your routine business operations, that will also form part of CSR as per Michael Hopkins. Be very clear, my dear learners, this is the definition given by Michael Hopkins. I am not saying anything, I am simply basically he said and I quote. So I am simply representing what Michael Hopkins has written about CSR. While defining the CSR, the kind of orientation Michael has, I'm just putting it in front of you. And there must be a business case for working with stakeholders as per Michael Hopkins, and it includes the wider society, and as such, being a responsible company or institutions means working in partnership with society and being part of its long-term development. So if you look at the perspective which this author is having, it says that we should look at the long term development. We should talk about the company should work with the society in as a responsible company or institution, and they should work in partnership with the society, and they should form part of this long term development of their country. And long term means big issues which are key to prevent collapse and are the responsibility of the institution. The source I have mentioned, we have taken this from the very book of Michael Hopkins, which he has authored. The name of the book is A Planetary Bargain. So from the Planetary Bargain, we have taken this definition and idea of Michael Hopkins on CSR. Now coming to the models of CSR, there are different models of CSR. I would try to name some of them: Friedman model, Ackerman model, Carroll model, and corporate citizenship model. And there is also a model by revered Mahatma Gandhi ji, the corporate citizenship model, Gandhiji's trusteeship model, that also will discuss in due course of our discussion. That CSR is not new for a country like India. We have been contributing to the cause of society. Our companies have been contributing to the betterment of society by the way of trusteeship model. So CSR mandate has come off late, at a later stage, but CSR have always been there from generations in our tradition, in our culture. So India is basically known for, Indian corporates are basically known for their contribution to the society. So starting from the Friedman model, which was given, which basically belongs to the period of 1962 to 73, where the businessman was supposed to perform their duty well and they were supposed to make profit. It was their duty to perform, while performing social as well as moral duty. They should take care of. They were supposed to take care of social and moral obligations as well while performing their duty, that is making profit. And a businessman, as per this model, they had no other social responsibility to perform except to serve their shareholders and stockholders. Their duty was to take care of the shareholders and stockholders, those who are holding your shares. They were supposed to take care of them, if we believe the model given by Friedman. Then came in 1976 Ackerman model, which emphasized on the internal policy goals and their relation to the CSR. And it's said that there are 4 stages involved in CSR. First is managers of the company. They should know the most common social problem, and then they should express a willingness to take a particular project which will solve some social problems. So as per this model, the first stage was that managers of the company, they should first know the most common social problem, and out of that they should choose from the given identified sets of problems, and willingly they should take a particular project, and they are supposed to solve that social problem. This was basically the first stage. The second stage was intensive study of problems by hiring the experts and getting their suggestions to make it operational. They were supposed to conduct an intensive study of the problem by taking help from experts and getting their suggestions. Third was they should take up the project actively, and of course they should work with commitment, dedication. And lastly, the evaluation of the project by addressing the issues that the project which they have undertaken, whether it could succeed or not. So that was basically the crux of that Ackermann model, which talked about voluntarily selecting some social problems, working on that, and evaluating their performance. Then came Carroll model. In 1991 this model came, and this model is well defined by this triangle, where the first responsibility which is being indicated at the bottom is economic responsibility, then comes legal responsibility, and afterwards ethical responsibility, and lastly philanthropic responsibility. On the left side, if you look, I have tried to mention what was there into Carroll model. Economic responsibility was being profitable, and for that what is to be done? Do what is required by the global capitalism. So what is the goal and the way they have to execute? The goal is mentioned on the left hand side of the triangle, and on the right hand side we have mentioned the way it is to be done. Legal responsibility, you have to obey the law, and for that what is to be done? Do what is required by the global stakeholders. Then comes ethical responsibility, you have to be ethical. So what is to be done? Do what is expected by the global stakeholders. And lastly, the philanthropic responsibility, be a good global corporate citizen. And for that what is to be done? Do what is desired by global stakeholders. So if you look at apart from economic responsibility, if you look at legal, ethical and philanthropic responsibility, what is expected from us? It is expected from us to do what is desired by global stakeholders. So taking care of what my stakeholder is expecting. So whatever is expected from us as a corporate entity, that we are supposed to take care of. So this was all about the Carroll's CSR pyramid, which described well what society might expect from a business. And Carroll basically gave an argument that companies should have economic responsibilities, and of course without making profit the company will cease to exist and CSR will die. However, they were saying that the key issues are that the CSR is not anti-profit, simply it is all about how profits are made. And here I would say that Michael Hopkins and Carroll, they were at the same line, that the key issue is the CSR, that CSR is never anti-profit. It says that you should take care of the way profit is being made. And Carroll then went on to mention legal responsibilities, and of course the ethical and philanthropic responsibility came. So with this I would end my today's lecture. I hope you must have understood and enjoyed today's lecture of mine. Thank you so much.